Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, time now for our daily debate, and today we're talking about something that many of us hadn't really heard of a year ago, but it's certainly in the news now. We're going to start with a contribution from the England rugby star, James Haskell.
You may have seen there are quite a lot of fake news stories operating on Facebook, and I think it's just Facebook, maybe out there on Twitter, that A, I've died, which is not true, B, I died of a steroid overdose, not true. B, I died of a drug overdose, not true. That my career is over because I've got a naughty secret that I've been trying to sell some drugs, which when you click on it tries to sell you drugs, which is bizarre. And also something about I've had to quit rugby and I've left everything in my family and I've moved away. So just to make sure it's very clear, this is absolute rubbish.
Well, that was James Haskell posting a video to deny reports circulating on social media. Now, that was one of many fake news stories posted on the internet, a digital phenomenon that helped make post-truth one of the words of 2016. So today we're debating what is fake news and what, if anything, can we do about it. With me, our technology correspondent Tom Cheshire, Jim Waterson of BuzzFeed, and Claire Fox of the Institute of Ideas. Right. In your view, what is fake news? Give us some examples.
Yeah, I think the examples are the best way to go. And this one we've got now is really going down the black hole of fake news. It starts eating itself. But this is a story about Rudy Giuliani having his account suspended from Twitter because, here we go, this is the fake news story itself. What he'd done, apparently, Rudy Giuliani, is tweeted a statement about Pizzagate, which is itself, it's the exemplar of fake news. So Pizzagate was this idea. It came from the hacked emails which were put on WikiLeaks from the DNC members. Some people started to think that there were coded messages there referring to human trafficking and a sex ring based at Comet Ping Pong, which is a pizza restaurant in Washington. This went all around the internet, on Facebook, on Twitter. Actually, it started on Twitter with a white supremacist tweeting this, and then it just snowballed. Ended up with a man going to Comet Ping Pong and with a rifle to...
And shooting someone, yeah.
He shot the restaurant a bit. He shot 3 shots. He didn't actually shoot anyone, but he was arrested. He said he wanted to go investigate himself, and he's still not convinced that it isn't fake news. And then this comes back with this Rudy Giuliani. He tweeted this thing saying Pizzagate is true, then his account was suspended. Of course, he tweeted no such thing. He doesn't actually have a Twitter account. This is someone pretending to be him, but it gets picked up all around the internet, and before you know it, it's there on Google search results. It's everywhere you look, and it just happens by itself. It's amazing the momentum it builds up, and that's sort of exemplary of the phenomenon we've seen all around the internet this year and how all these systems play into each other, Twitter and Facebook and Google. We used to think this was a Facebook problem, not just, but it's for everyone really, and it's rather worrying.
Jim, is it people just having a laugh? Is that what it's about?
No, I think it's genuinely quite a major threat to how we sort of function and sort of how we have a sort of agenda that actually we can discuss things within some reasonable bounds. We have got almost no control and distribution now, which for many reasons that's good. You no longer have to rely on a handful of newspapers to get an idea of what's going on in the world. On the other hand, it means that your mate John down the pub, who previously used to bang on about strange things, about secrets going on that he couldn't get out there, can now reach a far bigger audience than any newspaper can, and he can do it with one completely wild, unsubstantiated, unverified story, which gets straight out there, suddenly has 20,000 shares on Facebook, and millions of people who don't know any better think that it's there for a reason, it has some value.
And as I understand it, people can actually make money from generating clickbait, is that right?
This is the really classic one. Journalists have always unashamedly tried to push stories as far as they go. We all love a juicy headline, we all love a great bit of gossip, and then we often push it just that little bit further to try and make people take an interest in it. And that was how you sold papers, that's how you get people to watch TV shows, that's how you get people to tune in, and that was, accepted. The problem this time is that no one had considered a world in which you have no one controlling the distribution other than one company, particularly Facebook based in California, to the point where if you just make a completely fake headline, like that rugby player who says, people are clicking on stories to see I've died, obviously you'd click on that if you're interested in that as a player, and then they're finding he hasn't. But you've clicked on the site, you've given some ad revenue to the site that you've clicked on, and you're less interested in the much more mundane day-to-day news which traditional outlets are offering.
I mean, Claire Fox, is this heading towards entropy where post-truth, lies and facts are interchangeable?
I think I'm interested in the political discussion around it, because if we get the context, you know, a lot of people have argued in a kind of very earnest way that it's fake news stories that led to Hillary Clinton losing the election, that fake news and post-truth is an explanation for the Brexit vote. That's when I get nervous, because that seems to me to be kind of paternalism too far. This idea that everyone was duped by these stories, that everybody's a kind of idiot who kind of just sees this sort of mad thing and then votes. And so it's been used in a sort of a way to demonise people you don't agree with, because you say those people only voted that way because they were influenced by fake news stories.
But you see, I mean, let's talk about Donald Trump, because he's someone who has put out a lot of statements which he's backed away from or haven't turned out to be true. Now, this is a new one from him today. Right. This is about the whole question of the popular vote, the fact that Hillary Clinton got across the country nearly 3 million more votes than he did. And he just says, I would have done even better in the election if that is possible. If the winner was based on the popular vote, I would have campaigned differently, but would campaign differently. So in other words, he's basically saying to his supporters, so when people say Hillary Clinton got more votes, they'll come back and they'll say, well, basically that's because Donald Trump says he didn't try.
Yeah, but the thing that's galling about this is not that I want to defend Donald Trump, but he actually won the election in the way that we would have accepted that she'd have won it, even if she'd lost the popular vote.
She has accepted it. She's not
No, I know,
disputing.
but I'm saying the debate around it ends up forcing him into this mad situation. So my concern is that serious journalists are overplaying the fake news stories and the post-truth phenomena to say that this is a threat to democracy and truth. I actually think we've got a much bigger problem, by the way, which is the threat to democracy is the anti-democratic influence
nodding there.
behind this discussion.
The problem is there's always a counter-argument, which is that it probably was a system that needed reforming. It's probably, in fact, it definitely is much healthier that new outlets such as mine, BuzzFeed, can come along and break in entirely thanks to the internet opening up the news agenda. The downside is that the problem is through that gap and now charging in. We sort of breached the walls and in through the gap. Absolutely everyone is charging in.
Now, Tom, on Twitter we've got the blue tick which says, you know, theoretically it says it really is you who's doing this. Technologically, are there any ways of sort of sorting stories and saying, well, this is credible, this isn't credible?
It is really hard, and as Jim was saying, the problem is that this stuff just flies around and even people click on it and the damage is already done, you send out a rebuttal. I think what's interesting is the big tech companies, you know, they're kind of founded on optimism. Whether it's Twitter, everyone thought that this would be a lovely place for people to talk, and instead it turns into a den of trolls and horrible abuse. Facebook, the same sort of thing, that we want to connect people, but both of them rely on advertising, that relies on people really engaging on it, and they don't really mind what you click on. But I think there's Mark Zuckerberg, the chief executive of Facebook, had a lovely fireside chat with Sheryl Sandberg talking about the year in 2016, which was a fairly disastrous one for Facebook in every other metric than money. But he said Facebook is a new kind of platform. It's not a traditional technology company. It's not a traditional media company. You know, we build technology and we feel responsible for how it's used. That's a bit different from how it used to be. They used to say, we're just the pipes, we just put it out there. Now they're going to start thinking a bit more about what they can do about this.
But isn't there a nervousness here? I mean, one of the problems is that there's a lot of calls for regulation. We're seeing Facebook and Twitter under pressure, but sadly have gone along with it, to start censoring things that they don't like. And so we actually end up, for those of us who believe in press freedom, and actually the pursuit of truth reques freedom. I mean for any journalist.
Just have a look at one of my regular trolls here. Hey, Adam Bolton, here's examples of fake news, the Syrian waif banner, the good work of the white helmets, both Sky News stories. And you know, that's very insulting to Sky News, but it's out there, it's on my timeline, and it's sort of saying all Sky News is hard work is the equivalent of one bloke who accuses us of fake news.
Yep, and that's basically it. You've ended up at the point, and on the really scary bit is if you want to complain about Sky News' coverage, there's regulators who do it. If you want to complain about something that's going incredibly viral on Facebook, wrongly or rightly, you're basically dealing with the internal rules set by one company. And that's the bit that is very, very fascinating.
So,
I think we're going to see a lot of MPs in the next year making a lot of efforts to change that in the House of
Now,
Commons.
one of the things that I've been doing, talking to a lot of whatever we call them, professional journalists at the end of the year, and you know, the Financial Times, New York Times, the Times of London all say, well, one thing that's happened is our subscriptions have gone up. People want to go to trusted sources. So is this going to finish off? Is fake news going to finish off real news or not?
No, absolutely not. But it is up to mainstream journalists to up their game. You know, it's also the case that complacency doesn't work. Great journalism was somewhat lacking of late. Talk about echo chambers. Like the trolls didn't create them. The trolls didn't make every newspaper around the world miss the Brexit story in advance because they were talking to themselves too much. So I think that what we need is good investigative journalism that can just ride high above it and then not, by the way, get so defensive that it starts blaming fake news or turning the fake news story into a moral panic all of its own.
BuzzFeed is new journalism to a certain extent, but presumably wants to be trusted as well.
Yeah, and we're putting lots of money into investigative reporting and things like that, and we think that basically there's actually never been a better time to be a journalist and for good journalism. It's just there's a much worse time for trying to influence people and get the word out there.
I think those are both right, but also this happens every day. You remember when everyone used to think Nigerian princes were offering them a lot of money? We figure out how to work on the internet, and I think that's what we've realised this year. A lot more people are aware of fake news and other things, and will behave a bit better, hopefully.
You mean those stories aren't true? Anyway, thank you all very much indeed.
I've been